Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Jenny Halpin, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Major Alexander Brent. This evening's last post ceremony marks the 74th anniversary of the commencement of the Korean War. The Korean War began on the 25th of June 1950 when the North Korean People's Army launched a large-scale offensive across the 38th parallel into South Korea. Over the next 3 years, the war would rage the length and breadth of the Korean Peninsula and would cost over 2 million lives. 21 member nations of the United Nations, including Australia, sent combat or medical units to assist South Korea maintain its sovereignty. Around 17,000 Australians served in Korea between 1950 and 1953, of which 340 were killed, over 1,500 wounded, and 30 taken prisoner. A further 16 lost their lives during armistice enforcement operations. Their names are recorded here on the Roll of Honour. Today, we will recall the story of Private John Patrick Mulcahy, who was killed in action on the 2nd of July, 1952. This evening, we are honoured to acknowledge General Yoshide Yoshida, Chief of Staff, Japan Joint Staff Office, Japan's Self-Defence Force, accompanied by Chief of Defence Force, General Angus Campbell, and the Honourable Job Pomat, Speaker of the National Parliament, Papua New Guinea, and the accompanying delegation. We also warmly welcome the delegation from Tourism Australia. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Headland Senior High School from South Headland, Western Australia. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, flowers of the forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private John Patrick Mulcahy. John Mulcahy was born on the 12th of March 1927 in Edinburgh, Scotland, to Michael Mulcahy and Margaret Nay Stewart. Little of his early life in Scotland is known, but on the 6th of April 1950, aged 23, Mulcahy, who listed his occupation as an engine worker, emigrated to Australia. Jock, as he was known, sailed from Glasgow aboard the P&O liner Empire Brent. After disembarking in Adelaide, Mulcahy made his way to Tasmania, where he went to work as a waiter at the Rest Point Hotel at Sandy Bay. He enlisted for service in the Australian Army's Special Force for Korea, known as K-Force, on the 30th of July 1951 in Hobart. The commitment called for 2 years' service, including one on active service in Korea. He was sent to the 2nd Battalion, Royal Australian Regiment at Puckapunyal in Victoria, where he trained as an infantryman. Mulcahy flew out of Sydney on the 16th of February via Darwin to Japan. On arrival, he was sent to the Reinforcement Holding Unit at Kure. Initially destined for the 3rd Battalion, Royal Australian Regiment, he was instead sent to the 1st Battalion, Royal Australian Regiment. He joined 1RAR in Korea on the 8th of June and was posted to A Company. The battalion had arrived in Korea in March 1952 and entered the front line for the first time in June. Nighttime patrolling into no man's land began soon after. At the end of June, the battalion began preparations for its first operation. Known as Operation Blaze, it was to be a daylight raid on nearby Chinese positions to acquire a prisoner from their positions on a nearby hill known as Hill 227. The operation's name reflected the fact that it would be the first time Australian troops would use flamethrowers in action in Korea. The raid, given to A Company and led by Major David Thompson, began just after 9 a.m. on the 2nd of July. The assaulting troops advanced without a shot being fired, and they reached the Chinese positions before 9:30. As soon as the attackers reached the hill's crest, they came under heavy fire from several bunkers occupied by Chinese troops. The raiders then began receiving mortar fire, and Mulcahy was severely wounded by shrapnel, suffering the traumatic amputation of both legs. He was carried back to the Australian lines, where he was loaded into a waiting jeep. Only seconds after he had been loaded, a mortar round hit the vehicle, killing Mulcahy instantly and blowing out the vehicle's tyres. Miraculously, the stretcher bearers remained unwounded. The raid ended in failure, with no prisoner captured and no assessment of enemy casualties possible. A Company suffered 3 men dead, including Mulcahy, and 25 men wounded. Another 8 men from separate companies were also wounded. Mulcahy's body was taken to the United Nations ceremony at Busan and laid to rest with full military honours. He was 25 years old. His name is listed here on the honour roll on my left, among the 340 soldiers, sailors and airmen who died as a result of their service during the Korean War. He is also commemorated in the Scottish National War Memorial in Edinburgh. A photograph of his memorial plaque is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private John Patrick Mulcahy, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.